Beautiful and strong people. Coach Allen here, and today we're going to talk about what should we do if we're missing training sessions. It happens sometimes, just life throws at you something that you're not expecting, and you kind of have to say, "Hey, I can't train today, so I'm just not going to train it." So, the first thing that we should be taking under consideration, it's not a big deal if it happens once in, I don't know, let's say 2 months or something like that. If it does become a habit, yeah, maybe it kind of, we're getting into some problematic things in there. But always talk with your coach. If you feel like the frequency in which you're training is just not doable for your lifestyle circumstances at that time, talk with your coach so we can he or she can actually guide you and find a better format, a better pretty much microcycle layout to work for your lifestyle circumstances. Uh, but I really want to put this into perspective because we really have to put things into perspective on a larger scale. Okay, so if you're training 300 days per year, let's presume, okay, do you think it's going to be such a big deal if you're missing one training session? I don't think it's going to be a big deal if you're missing even 5 training sessions, maybe 10 training sessions. Again, putting things into perspective, if that's something that doesn't usually happen. Okay, so you're still usually going through the same, let's say, format, the same microcycle layout, but it just happens so on some weeks you just have to skip a training session. Okay, especially if you're training on a low frequency program, training 2 to 3 times a week, you can just shift training around. You can just shift sessions around. It gets a little bit more complicated when you have a high frequency training, a moderate to high frequency training anywhere around 4 to 6 times a week. The training days kind of, to some degree, may potentially overlap, and it may potentially influence the, let's say, the waves of fatigue and the waves of adaptation. So in that case, yeah, it might be a good idea to consider some ways around it, and you know that's exactly what we're actually going to do right now. We're going to try and see how we can go around missing 1 to 2 training sessions. Okay, so let's just start off with a baseline training program. Okay, your day 1 is your primary squat with an RDL. Day 2 is your primary bench. Day 3 is your deadlift with a secondary squat. And day 4 is your secondary bench press. Okay, so the first one would be prioritizing the main lifts. Okay, say you're missing day 3. Okay, well, we can bring the deadlift into the day 4. Okay, doing it together with the close grip bench press, and we can do a mixture between the accessories that we currently have. So maybe you can do your lat pull downs with some good mornings and with some skull crushers, or you can do 2 sets of each instead of actually doing 3 sets, so you're not missing on any particular accessory. And in this way, if you miss day 3, is not a big deal, is not affecting your flow of the week in any kind of manner. You're just having your, let's say, primary deadlift a little bit closer to your day 1. Okay, but it should not really be a huge, let's say, energy leak into your squat session. If, however, let's say you're missing day 1 and day 3, move your squat into your bench, do your squat together with the bench, and do your deadlift together with the close grip bench press, and you've kind of solved this issue around. Of course, ideal would be to mitigate things to some degree, and one of the ways in which you can actually do that is by shifting everything with one day. So if your time commitment and the flow of the week does allow you to shift training around, and instead of doing something like Monday Tuesday, doing your Tuesday Wednesday, that's another way that's very non-invasive of actually keeping the same flow of the microcycle. Okay, so instead of having your Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, you can do your Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. And you can keep the same layout as you're going through the block, or if needed be, you can actually shift everything back to Monday. So you're filling into your element on the upcoming week. And number three is to just recover the missing day with a taper. So say you are you have a 4 week block and you are within week 3 and you kind of need the exposure to the heavy load, but also you need to some degree some exposure to the accessories. Okay, so again, say you're missing day 3, you can taper some of the back downs on the deadlift and on the close grip bench press, maybe even potentially dropping some of the sets that you're executing. So for example, maybe on your pause squat you're going to drop one set, maybe your good mornings, dropping one set from those, so your RDLs are not going to feel too wonky when you're getting into your day 1. Maybe not training the dips as intensely on the back end. Your lat pull downs and skull crusher shouldn't really affect in any kind of manner your day 1. So in this case, you're recovering that day within the week. You're just extending your microcycle, and you're still prepared. You're still having the top end strength in there. You're just tapering a little bit of volume, and you should feel good that getting into your week 4 where you should be executing your pretty much your best, your peak of that block. So these are 3 ways around it if you're missing training sessions. Again, put things into a larger perspective. If you're training 300 times a year, if you're missing one training session, is not going to be a crime. That's all good. Just don't make a habit out of it. I hope this is helpful. I'll catch you later.